Oh, I am bringing on JJ Virgin to talk about getting stronger as we age. So let me push pause, and she's already in the waiting room. All right, I'm honored to have JJ Virgin on my podcast today, and I appreciate your time so much and wisdom you're going to share with us and help enlighten us how to improve the aging process. As I keep talking about on the show, change how we train, don't blame the aging process, but embrace it. And
I love that line so much. I can't stand it. I'm like going, I wrote it down the minute you said change how you train. I'm like, ah,
yeah.
beautiful. I'm going to quote you.
Well,
Good one.
I just think after, we hit 40s and you can't think you're going to train and fuel and do everything you did when you're 40, 30, 20 something years old, that you just got to change it up. And I think so many people just use I hate the excuse, I'm getting older. That's always bothered me since I started personal training people when I was 25, that, oh, I'm getting older. This is normal. This is what's supposed to happen. I'm supposed to get fat, slow, and have no energy and not be able to sleep at night. And so my goal is to share people that's not how it's done. And you really kind of changed your platform focusing on how to improve the aging process. So I wanted to share your knowledge and experience and
Yeah,
everything
it's
you've
it's
done. And
interesting. The reality is, like, you think about it and go, well, would you use the same skincare you used when you were a teenager or in your 20s? Like, no.
yeah,
You don't dress the same as you did in your 20s, likely. I mean, some
hopefully.
people do, but I'll look at something and go, yeah, no, don't buy that. Do not do that. But
I know.
so I mean, why would we be doing the same things that we did in our 20s and 30s and expecting different results in our 40s and 50s when things shift? The interesting thing is, I'm shining a light on it now, but the reality is, I started doing this in my 20s because back then all my clients were 40s and 50s and 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And what I saw very quickly, I had to turn off my little beeps. What I saw very quickly was that the things that we were being taught in graduate school that would work really awesomely well for our people in their college age graduate students were not working at all for people
Mm-hmm.
in their 40s and 50s, and they were making them worse. And so literally I started way back when taking people to the gym. I used to take people on field trips to Gold's Gym in Venice and prioritizing resistance training, prioritizing high intensity interval training. And so I feel like I'm able to really talk about it now, and it's come full
Mm-hmm.
circle. Although
Mm-hmm.
I still notice that women are prioritizing cardio and scared of resistance training.
Yes.
It's still like it's like this terrible thing that will not die.
Yeah, for sure. That was one of my top things to start with, those, common struggles you hear about from your followers and complaints and errors that people
Mm-hmm.
do as doing cardio to lose weight. Is that your
Well,
number one?
what I would love to just reframe the entire thing. Like if we could go back in time and go, you know what, we're never going to have a scale. We're only going to have bioimpedance scales. We're only ever going to talk about body composition. And we're going to look at these things as different compartments. It would change everything. It would change the way we approach things. Like if you could see, oh boy, I did that thing and I dropped weight and it was all muscle. And so now I look like, and you've seen it. I don't know if you've noticed this over the years, but I used to watch people go on these diets and I went, wow, they look like a smaller version of themselves. Like before they had, they looked like kind of a potato on stilts. They had a bigger, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't get better because it's not what you weigh, it's what that weight's made up of. And you have to make sure that when you're going through this process, you're doing things that are going to help you lose fat, put on muscle. But if you even take it to a higher level vision of what do we need to do? And I love what Peter Tia talks about with the centenarian decathlon. Like, what do you
Mm-hmm.
want to be able to do in your hundreds? And I still think back, I had a client when I'd moved to Palm Springs, and I said, so what are your goals? And she said, I want to be able to dance in my stilettos. And she was in her like late 70s. I go, got it. All right. And it wasn't something I could understand in my 40s, right? But then all of a sudden you go, okay, what do we start to lose? Well, we lose power. We know we lose muscle size, but strength and power more. We lose that balance and flexibility and agility. So what are all the things we need to focus on as we age? Because it's very different than what we had in our 20s and 30s.
Yeah, and that's what I've seen as a personal trainer, previous life for 25 years, watching my dad passed away 2 years ago at age 80, my mom's 83, living in Palm Desert, and you see all their friends aging and what's happening, and how the men seem to go first before the women, and what we can do now, I keep saying, to recreate ourselves now, to be our best version of ourselves in the future, and really create our future self at 40
Mhm.
something, 50, you know, not wait until you're struggling, and really strive to thrive as we age is what I'm really passionate about, and how so much of it is controllable, as you're saying, and Peter T is saying in his book and program and his podcast, and everyone, like, exercise, the right type and movement and what we're eating. So what are some things you think of first that you really wish we could get more people to do to take care of
Yeah, and
themselves now?
it's interesting you mentioned Palm Desert, because when I was in Desert, I used to work out at Palm Desert Country Club, mainly because they had a kids club, so I could put my kids in it. And when you walked through to the gym, you walked down a corridor. And as you walk down this corridor, on both sides were glass into these rooms. One room was the weight training room. One room was the cardio room. Let me just see if I can turn my mail off.
I know it's like
Okay,
those
sorry about that.
distractions.
Yes, well, I'm not on my home podcast only computer. And so what was so interesting is you'd walk down this hallway, and the people that were in the weight room, and most of the people that were at this gym were 40s, 50s, but predominantly 50s, 60s, 70s. And I watched over the course of 3 years of being there, these people in their 50s, 60s, 70s improving, getting in better shape, being able to do heavier things. I watched the people in the cardio room not improving, in fact, not staying the same, in fact, getting worse. And I thought, can't they see into the other room? Like, aren't they curious? Like, is there, like, is this the definition of insanity here? You're like doing this thing, and not only is it not improving you, you're getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you look at what happens as we age, and then you look at what I love the most, and you must love this too, being in the exercise science world, where for so many years I felt like the peasants of the healthcare practitioner space, and like the exercise people were like the peasants. And now when you look at longevity, the single biggest thing that can impact longevity is exercise. So all of a sudden we are like the rock stars, because this will make a bigger difference than anything else. And I'm always looking at what are the biggest needle movers that I can do for somebody, right? Because none of us want to spend more time, more energy. We want to have results. And so as we age, we know that a couple things start to shift, and that they are completely tied to both health span, lifespan, all-cause mortality. In fact, when you look at VO2 max, and that's how much oxygen you can uptake at a maximum effort, it is the number one predictor of longevity and all-cause mortality. And then you look at muscle strength, and you can do that by looking at grip strength or looking at push-ups. That's another one that's a huge predictor of health span and all-cause mortality. And then same with balance. Well, you can't take a pill for these. You actually have to do the work.
I
you
know.
know yeah,
Imagine that.
and you have to do the right work. Like I when I lived in Palm Desert, everyone loved to go hiking on these big mountains, and I'd watch people in their 70s hiking on these mountains. I thought that is so cool, except it's actually not the best thing for you to be doing. Yes, we need to move more, and we should be out rucking and walking, but the reality is, when you really look at what happens as we age, your most important things for exercise are to do resistance training with a focus on strength and power, and to do high intensity interval training with an emphasis on lactate training for your brain. So these are very different than going on a hike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's funny. I do trying to launch in San Diego, Pinoy metabolic testing. So it's measuring your VO2 max, figuring out your zone 2 based on your fat to carb burn. And it's fascinating thinking so many people are going to want this test because of Peter Attia talking about zone 2 all the time, and your VO2
Which is
max.
great for guys. It's great for
Yeah.
guys. But and here's the other part. Who cares how much fat you're burning during exercise? The research has shown this over and over again. It is not what you burn during exercise.
Mm-hmm.
It's being in that deficit at the end of the day. So your body has to go into its fat reserves and use them. So, you could do a fasted workout, which I think is awful for women anyway, and burn more fat during the workout. It will not make a difference.
Mm-mm. I
What
found out
makes it
that way.
right? It won't make a difference. We all tried it and we're like, wow, I
Yeah.
can't work out as hard. I feel like crap. This is
Yeah.
no good. I'm not able to put on, and if I can't work out hard, I can't put on muscle. And if I can't put on muscle, I'm not going to be insulin sensitive. I'm not going to boost my metabolism, because the real only way to impact resting metabolic rate is put it on muscle. So there you have it. So what do we need to do then if you are 40 plus and you want to be at your very best at 50, 60, 70? And full disclosure, I am back at my leanest body fat that I was in my 20s,
Yeah.
actually as strong or stronger in my early 60s. So this whole idea that you can't do these things is
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can choose to listen to that and then won't be able to do those things. Or
Yeah.
you can decide, well, what if I could be at my best now, because there's so much more we know now that we can put into
Mm-hmm.
place,
Yeah.
right? And you probably have time to spend on it. The big thing is, just because you have the time doesn't mean you spend go crazy on overtraining either, because you need to
That's a big
recover,
error.
right?
Yeah. I
Yes,
know.
that's so when I look at all of this, I think the first thing that we do need to do is just make sure that we're moving more all throughout the day. I am amazed when you look at the average amount of steps a human gets. It's somewhere, for the US, it's like 3,000 to 4,000 steps a day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is
Yeah.
pathetic. 3,000 to 4,000 steps a day. So I always start with, let's just track that first and actually make sure you're getting in your steps.
Mm-hmm.
Those are not exercise. That is flossing your teeth. That is just one of those things that you do, not
Yeah.
exercise. Exercise has to progress. You have to get hot, you have to get sweaty, you have to hurt a little bit, you have to push yourself so you can do more than what you're used to. That's not walking. Walking's controlled falling. But I do love adding a rucking vest while out walking. I think that's like so cool, especially for women with bone density issues. Fabulous,
So
right?
Dr. Anna was just doing that. Did you get her to do that? She was Dr. Anna
I don't
Gebecki
know.
was
Was
on her.
she?
She was
I've been,
wrecking us. I was going to text
yay.
her, go, way to go, Anna.
I think everybody's out rucking now. Like it's a thing. Was it 2 years ago? It was at Mindshare Summit. A gal came who had pretty rucking vest. And I was like, oh, finally. Like, where's the
Really?
pink rucking vest for the girl? They all look like these tactical things for
Yeah.
dudes.
Army fatigues.
Right. I still have not nailed the how to ruck while I travel. I mean, I have a backpack I can throw stuff into, but it just hasn't quite worked out. But that's my first step, is moving more. And
Moving.
right alongside that is knowing, and you talked about knowing your body composition,
Mm-hmm.
getting that body composition tested and monitoring it on the regular.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I think going back to the moving though, number one, I feel that a lot of our listeners are exercising, and I always try to tell, like, my holistic method, I have 8 elements of kind of all that stuff together, but there's movement and then there's exercise, just as you're saying. So
right,
just to clarify, if you go to the
right.
gym in the morning, you still need to move throughout the day. And even since COVID, I started saying move meal times, think of them as move times, especially after you eat, get moving throughout the day. Just think breakfast, lunch, dinner. Oh, I got to move. But so many people just think, oh, I worked out and I can sit on my rear end all day long.
And I think that's what COVID showed us, is like all of a sudden you're working out 30 minutes a day and sitting the rest of the time. We know it basically erases it. So you have to do both, and they are different.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's like, you wouldn't say, I brush my teeth so I don't have to floss them.
Yeah.
Done. Don't worry.
I know.
It's like, you wouldn't do that. So this is the same type of thing. This is just part of the routine. And I love that you talked about the after the meals, because it's also, you don't want to go, I'm just going to do it all at once.
Yeah.
I remember we looked at a study when I was in graduate school where they told people to either do 30 minutes a day of walking or 3 times 10 minutes a day of walking. And the people who did the 3 times 10 had better cardiovascular markers at the end of the study. And what
Mm-hmm.
they thought was, it was because if you couldn't do 30 minutes, you didn't do anything.
Mm.
But I think
Yeah.
it was probably much more of, some of that, but more the metabolic effect of, okay, if you're going to move throughout the day, you're going to lower your blood sugar response. You'll probably move a little faster because it's only 10 minutes. So that's the other thing that I'm coaching people on, is not just making sure that you're moving, but making sure that it's all throughout the day.
Yeah. And I'm a rebounder right here. And I was on a Zoom call with someone yesterday and they couldn't tell, just stand there, just
They
move it.
couldn't tell? How could they
Wise
not
personal
tell?
training them. So
Oh,
I
okay.
could bounce while I was training them on FaceTime.
I
It
was like,
was
they couldn't
funny.
see that bounce up and down?
Well, it's very subtle. But I think I always like to say, as you're saying, the minimal effective dose. Because a lot of people think, oh, I don't have 30 minutes, so I'm not going to do it. I have to go to this meeting or I have to do this or that. But I was think, even if 2 minutes, if it's running up your stairs,
Right.
it just all accumulates throughout the day. It's not just 30 minutes or nothing. Break it up is
Since
great.
I started really tracking my Aura Ring, my steps, I now make an effort of going up and down the stairs more.
Yes.
And especially where at my house in Florida, we put our offices and gym are upstairs, and then all the goodies are downstairs. So all my fun sparkling water and coffee, all that's downstairs. All that other stuff's upstairs. So and I was tempted. I'm like, I should have an espresso machine up here. I'm like, no, I should not. I should have to get my butt
Gotta
and
go
go
get it.
downstairs. So up and down, up and down, up and down. Our dogs do it with us, so it's good for them too.
Well, this
So
is my little glass house. Our house is down, our backyard is a hilltop yard. So I have 32 stairs to go down to the house, to go to the bathroom, to get the water, anything too. So it is,
perfect.
yeah. Move it your office far away as you can from your
Yes.
house or your bathroom refrigerator.
I mean, when you think about it, the perfect house for someone, because you know how they talk about aging houses and getting one-story houses. I thought that's actually the worst thing you could do. If you're aging, you should have like, your kitchen on the top floor, your bathroom on the bottom floor, so you're up and down, up and down, up and down. It's 3 or 4 stories.
Yeah, they might need diaper, depends on. Anyway, okay, so movement, body fat testing. Do you like to do that every couple months, or what do you think is good for testing fat?
I think it depends on where someone is, if they're stable or they're trying to change things. So if you're trying to change things, I would do it every 4 to 6 months. And what I do is I have you get a body fat scale for home, and I know it is not as accurate. It does not matter. We're looking at relative change. We're not looking at absolutes, because the DEXA is not perfect either. So what I do is I go get a DEXA, then I come home and check my scale at home. So I've got it correlated. And then I love the bioimpedance scales that just report to a Bluetooth. So you get on it every single day, but you don't have to look at it. You can just have it go to your phone, and then you look at the trend line over the week.
Yeah, so you're not
weight goes,
day to day.
Boop, 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 boop. Yeah, you don't get yourself crazy, but you're really looking for, like, I just went off to Europe and I was basically out for 2 months. And in Europe, it's like we went to crazy Michelin star restaurants, all sorts of stuff. And I brought a scale with me, but it wasn't my same bioimpedance scale that I have at home. So I come home and I'm really curious as to what the heck happened. Now, I knew my weight had stayed stable, but I didn't drop. Like, I dropped 2 pounds and held onto my muscle, dropped fat, right? Now we could go on a whole rant about European food and how our food supply sucks.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. But I mean, that's the important thing, because if I'd come home and I dropped 2 pounds and it was muscle, that would have not been a good thing. And I really fight when I travel. Like, I have a TRX. I know where all the gyms are. I run up and down stairs. So I'm doing all the stuff. It's just not, it's not the same as your routine, but sometimes that's really good because you're changing things up and forced to.
Yeah, I know. A side note, in Europe, we always find they have the best outdoor parks. And if you look at the parks, they have workout stations, just silly little pull-up bars, but they have these, metal elliptical things and chest press and pull downs and just all these equipment. In every city we go to, we always find that park, the equipment. Okay, so what about nutrition? And then we'll get into exercise type, because we can break that up a little bit of the cardio intervals and the weights. But nutrition is such a huge topic, as well as exercise. So any big changes? We talk about protein all the time, and I know you talk about that a lot. So what do you find the biggest change as we age for focusing on nutrition? As our industry, we've gone from paleo to keto, carnivore, real food, and you started I didn't say at the beginning of the show, but I was going to tell you, you're the first podcast I listened to Sean Croxton on your
Oh,
back in the
wow.
day in
Way
underground
back
wellness.
when.
I
Yeah.
know, I was trying to find it. I was just trying to search for it. But your
Hmm.
book that came out was like my first, your elimination diet and everything. So what's kind of changed in your world over the years and opinions as we age for focus on nutrition?
So, first of all, I think that just like exercise, we have to look at diet and exercise for our goals. It's really interesting with exercise. No one would ever have one exercise prescription that you're supposed to do for your whole life, and this is it. And, but yet we
Good
do
point.
this with diet.
Hmm.
And we also do it with diet where, everyone needs to be on this specific diet. Well, that's silly. Now, there's components of an exercise program that we know people need, and there's components of diet that we know people need. Like you can't live without protein and fat, you'll die, or water. So you're going to have these things. And then we just have to look at, well, what's optimal for you based on your goals, your age, your sex, your lifestyle, your health, what you'll do, all of that. But I think knowing all of that, one of the important things to look at as we age is just the clear changes that start to happen. And especially with women, where women tend to have more slow twitch muscle fibers than fast twitch fibers, right? Men have more fast twitch. Fast twitch are the more mitochondrial dense. They're the ones that are going to build more muscle. They're going to get bigger size. And those slow twitch ones, that's what makes us more metabolically flexible, makes us able to burn fat better. However, we want to make sure if we start to lose those fast twitch muscle fibers, that means that we don't have the power, we don't have the strength, we can't move as fast, we can't catch ourselves. Very problematic. And so what we have to look at is as we age, when we start to get into our 30s, now we're building muscle more based on diet and stimulus rather than hormones. And then as we start to get into our 40s and estrogen starts to get wonky, estrogen is to women like testosterone is to men. We all think of testosterone for building muscle, but we have to have estrogen for building muscle. I'm kind of obsessed with Dr. Vonda Wright's work on the menopause musculoskeletal syndrome and this idea that when estrogen starts to drop, we're having trouble building muscle, our ligaments start to not repair like they used to in our soft tissue. And really, you notice a difference, like you just can't seem to recover. So you look at that and go, okay, we don't have as much of that driver of estrogen unless we're doing hormone replacement. Now we also start to get anabolic resistance, where we know as we start to age, we need to rely more on the actual stimulus of the exercise, which means walking is not going to build muscle. Like in order to build muscle, you have to do more than what your body's used to. So it has to repair and recover. So that's not walking. And it's not your yoga or Pilates class either, unless you're completely out of shape. It's not your swim class, right? So you've got that piece, but you also need the protein stimulus. And that's the big challenge I see as we age is we have women who've been starving themselves and counting calories for so many years and eating more of a vegan or vegetarian style diet and not looking at protein for the essential amino acids that we get out of it or what it's doing to drive muscle protein synthesis. And then all of a sudden you say, okay, you need to eat more protein. And they tell you they can't because they're full. I'm like, well, you're full because you ate that muffin, the other stuff. So we got to eat protein first. So I think if I had to look at a priority here for women as we age, it's ensuring that you get what you need for protein because you need the protein to drive the muscle protein synthesis. And we want to make sure that we're holding on to, but better yet, building muscle as we age. We want to really focus, especially in that fast twitch zone, because we're already pretty good on the slow twitch and really pushing that area and that requires more protein. It requires more energy overall, right? And it requires the right type of training.
Yeah. And I think the nutrition part, getting protein, is always challenging for women and men, but that for anyone you say, if you go by Dr. Gabrielle Lyon and layman's, 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight, and then breaking that up, say 4 hours, getting that 30, 50 gram dose. People are always like, that's impossible. I can't do that.
It's not about, I eat more than
even.
that every single day. I was like, I could look at my chronometer app right now. And it's like, here's the thing, just start with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible if it's an afterthought and you've never been
Yes.
eating that way. But the reality, I am fortunate. I have an amazing professor who lives nearby me, Dr. Bill Campbell, and he is the
Mm.
only physique lab that's starting to study women in their 40s, 50s, 60s.
Oh,
We
good.
love this guy. He's amazing because his wife is going through menopause and now he's
Oh,
studying all of this. And he came over to do a podcast and he goes, "Do you eat a lot of protein?" I go, "Yes." He goes, every time I meet a woman who is lean, that's the number one thing, the variable they have in common.
mhm,
Because if you eat protein first, you don't have the cravings and you don't have the hunger. And
mhm.
so it's all like everyone's looking at GLP-1s, and that's a whole nother discussion. I'm a huge fan of GLP-1s, which I know ever gets people completely whacked out at me, but for other reasons. But when you look at why people are doing those things, the big reason they're doing it is satiety. Well, we have a natural satiety pill. It's called protein.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, it's like go eat a big steak and then try to pig out after that.
Yeah. I
You're
know. People,
full.
you're stuffed. I mean, eat as much as
Yeah.
you want to feel full. If I eat
Yeah. I mean,
properly.
we laughed the other day. We came back from that boat trip and we were in Bellevue. So we went, let's go to Fogo de Chao.
Oh,
And
that's where I
it's
live,
this
Bellevue, by the way.
it's so pretty. So we're in there and we don't mess with the salad bar or any of that stuff. We just sit
Yeah.
down and eat the meat. And I go, they're really losing money on us. But you know, it's like you can only eat so much and you're so full. Like I just
Hmm.
like can't do it. And that's what I would encourage people is sit down, plan your meal around your protein, eat your protein first, then eat those non-starchy vegetables.
Hmm.
You'll still have great blood sugar control. I know there's all
Yeah.
this hoo-ha about blood sugar, and I think it's an overly focused thing on blood sugar. It makes me a little insane. Like lift weights, you'll get insulin sensitive. You won't have blood sugar issues.
Yeah. Well, that's, I think I've done a lot of podcasts on this and trying to do my rabbit hole, just like why we went from keto, people eating just eat fat, as much fat as you want. And then protein was forgotten about because they're also scared of having
Mhm.
protein to create gluconeogenesis that we're going to increase glucose. But then protein was evil too as carbohydrates. So then we went off the other end and just eat carnivore, eat meat based. And then people are just so confused of, okay, should I just do meat? Should I have vegetables? Do I need fiber? What's bad? What's
I know.
good? No fruit.
I think carnivore diet for a short term, I'm actually using it to help reset someone right now. I'm helping someone lose 200 pounds.
Mm,
So I'm helping him lose more. He has more fat than person, right? So I finally was messing with him on some stuff, and I go, you know what? Let's just do a carnivore reset, and bam, wild impact that it had.
mhm,
Um, because it's just when that's all you're eating, it's really tough to have cravings of any sort whatsoever. Now, do I think that's a long-term plan? And this is where I think we have to think of diets. There can be great short-term things that you use. Maybe use it for a week, a month, 3 months, and then you go, all right, let's look at what else we need here. Yes, you're going to get polyphenols from the meat, but you're not getting fiber. I just don't buy that a diet long-term without fiber is going to be a good thing.
mhm. Why do we need fiber? Was what people ask.
I know. And it's like, and
Mm,
well, I know there's a whole lot of arguments about this right now. And
it's
here's the
so
thing. I
big.
think if you've got a lot of gut distress, going more carnivore and letting your gut calm down for a little bit, like if your gut's all over the board, throwing more fiber at it probably isn't going to be the thing that
Mhm,
helps it. This is where the elimination diet that I wrote for Virgin Diet worked really well because I just pulled out reality as a lot of ultra processed foods and put in healing anti-inflammatory foods, protein, healthy fats, and some veggies and fruit. But I think if you're really trying to heal your gut and it's just in a mess, gosh, going carnivore is a very easy way to calm things down. As
mhm.
and I'd say go carnivore and don't eat eggs or dairy because a lot of times if you've got leaky gut, those are key offenders. But long term, when you look at your gut microbiome, I just think fiber is going to be a better thing to put in there to start to feed. I mean, you know, prebiotics are going to feed butyrate. It's going to help with fat burning. It's going to help uh, with blood sugar stabilization. It helps with poops. It helps with detoxification. So I think long term we'd want to do it, but short term, you know, you can heal your gut for 3 months and be better off.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. As I always think too, people have irritable bowel syndrome I'm not going to give them a high fiber diet.
No,
And
God.
you do food tests. I do the functional lab test, the stool test, you do food sensitivities, and you look at the whole picture, how to really personalize a program, look at their genetics, then you can really get into it. But it is more, why can't you tolerate that food? Let's fix the
Right.
gut and digestion improvement and your microbiome.
But I have looked at it, because I am trying to be so aware of this. Is this something that, because I've always heard fiber was good, that I'm thinking fiber is good? And I really looked at that because I was talking to Mike Mutzel, who went off on Mike. So I was just Mike lives in Bellevue. So I just was
I
with
know him
Mike.
from childhood, his parents.
Oh,
You're back
that's
my
so
stomping grounds.
funny.
You're
Oh
up
my
in
gosh.
Desolation. I grew up in Vancouver, BC. Voted in
Wow.
Desolation Sound every summer. Then age 13 to 4 years ago, I was in Bellevue. So you were just, and now I'm in San
Wow.
Diego. So
Yes.
you've just been following me.
I went to do all that stuff. That was quite interesting. Like, definitely a trip of a lifetime. But, he had a whole great theory as to why we don't need fiber. And I'm like, God, is it just my belief system?
Mhm.
Like, am I being religious about fiber? And I say, I don't know at this point. I can
Yeah.
make the argument as to why I think fiber is good for you long term. But, then you look at things like Inuits. They have no fiber in their diet. So,
Yeah.
do we have to have it? I think that we are, as humans, have such great redundant systems that as long as we have protein, as long as we have fat, and as long as we have hydration, we can pull it off.
Yeah. I think so.
Doesn't
I
mean
mean,
it's
I'm always on
best.
the fence. Yeah. I think it is tested out. I mean, I'm always like, I don't know. I used to only eat salads and be just, eat the whole big salad and have some chicken on it. And that's all I ate was salads until I don't know how many years ago. That it's interesting to me, the viewpoint of
Yeah.
fiber. But anyways, this is a good
It's
point.
funny. I haven't been doing as much salad. I used to be, I think we
Mhm.
all, every woman
Female.
everywhere
Yeah.
ate a lot
I
of
only eat
salad.
salad.
And a lot of times I would look at that salad and I go, I think you turned that salad into a sundae. You had like 5 calories of romaine, then you had fried bread and cheese, and like you look at all the other stuff and I go, this really wasn't a salad. This was like,
Mhm.
receptacle of garbage.
Yeah.
But like when I really started to look at this, I go, I don't eat the salads I used to eat now. Now I spend a lot more time eating broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprout,
Mhm.
a lot more cooked
Cruciferous.
vegetables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny when you just listen. I always look at too intuition and intuitive eating and training and listening to your body, what you feel like. And now I just crave meat. But if some days I want some berries or if I want some vegetables, but lately I haven't felt like that. So it's not that I'm avoiding them. It's just I'm going by what I feel and what I need too. So there's something to your intuition.
Yeah. Except here's the thing I think that's important with intuitive eating. If you are eating the typical 70% highly processed diet in the United States, you are not a candidate for intuitive eating
Yeah. No,
because
single food
your
ingredient.
taste receptors, you have to clear all that out so that you can really hear what your body needs. And when you're
Mhm.
in that state of total nutrition desert, you can't tell.
Yeah,
You'll
for
think you
sure.
need an Oreo cookie. You
Yeah.
don't.
Okay. Well, clarify intuitive eating of single food ingredient only. And protein based. Okay, so exercise. I want to make sure we have time to exercise in you've gone over a lot of things. You talk a ton on your social media and really educating people in your videos, especially for women. Cardio we talked about versus weights and tendency people think I'm getting fatter. I don't like my body changing and their innate intelligence is saying, "Oh, I need to do cardio," versus, "All right, that doesn't work to body recomposition, say like we need to increase metabolism because it's slowing down as we age, but how do you improve metabolism? Lifting weights,
Well, let's talk
use protein."
metabolism too, because
Yeah.
there was this really ridiculous study, and Will Lee told me about it. And I'm kind of like, this doesn't make sense. And it was like that our metabolism really didn't change till age 60. They'd done all this research. I'm like, yeah, but when your estrogen drops, your metabolism drops. You become more insulin resistant. You start to become more inflamed. So something shifts there. Every woman
Mhm.
everywhere knows this. This is not news, right?
Yeah.
So when you really look at your metabolism, there's 3 different pieces to your metabolism. There's your resting metabolic rate. Now, your resting metabolic rate, how do we impact your resting metabolic rate? Well, obviously hormone balance, thyroid, estrogen, these will have an impact. But the big driver that we can shift as we age, and the big thing that shifts as we age, is muscle mass.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
and how you can tell if you've crushed it in this area is you go get a DEXA scan, because it's going to give you a predicted resting metabolic rate based on your skeletal muscle mass. And then you do a breathalyzer test that will also give you a resting metabolic rate. And if your breath test is better than your DEXA, it's because you have killed it with your muscle mass. So that's the
Mhm.
first place I look at, is like, how do we do that? The next one is eating, and that's, you know, 15% of our daily calories, metabolic rate is going to be from eating. So how do we impact eating? Eat protein. And that was where Bill Campbell was like, showed me that they would take people and they would keep them isocaloric, so eating the same amount of food, and shift calories away from fat or carbs. Fat, basically nothing, doesn't do anything to your metabolism when you eat it. Carbs are somewhere in the 5 to 15% range. He'd shift them to protein. Protein is very metabolically costly to go through muscle protein synthesis to be assimilated, and it would take about 25% of those calories. So if all you did was shift some calories away from carbs and fat and over to protein, people would initially lose weight.
Mm.
So you got that piece of it. And then
Mhm.
you have activity, of which exercise and movement fall under this whole thing. People tend to think of it as exercise, but honestly, you probably could make a bigger impact by just making sure you're moving more all throughout the day. That can be another 1,000 calories. So
Mhm.
you've got that piece of, it's called non-exercise activity
Neat.
thermogenesis. It's everything
Yeah.
from fidgeting to just moving around. It's all that stuff that I'm working on a little neat challenge for this, because I just want it to be so in our minds. And then there's exercise. So there's two ways to think of exercise. I could be exercising to burn off as many calories as possible at that time, or I could act like this is an investment portfolio. So if I'm looking at this from a financial perspective, I'm either, spending a bunch of money, which would be cardio, or I am putting on a bunch of muscle, which changes my interest rate, which gives me a lot of extra money that I can spend, but it doesn't deplete me like the other one does. So I look at this and go, I could do the cardio and spend calories right there, or I can increase my basal metabolic rate and increase my rate overall, because body has very metabolically costly to recover from, say, true high intensity interval training or resistance training. Your body has to do all that repair work, right? As opposed to no
Mhm.
repair work after a walk. So my focus for women is going to be, if they want to lose fat, hold on to and build muscle, and you want to build muscle, and don't be afraid of building muscle. You would be lucky. You'd be jumping up and down if you could put on 2 pounds of muscle a month. That would be amazing, like incredible.
Mhm.
Um, but if you want to do that, then resistance training has to be at the forefront. Big movements that are hard, that you can't just keep pumping out more and more and more. I do squats and leg presses and pull-ups and push-ups, like big compound movements. And you want to get to a point where you can only eke out one or two more, and you do multiple sets of this. You make sure it's hard, you get close to fatigue for that. And then you do some high intensity interval training that specifically is going to help you with raising lactic acid, with raising lactate rather, with pushing, getting you a better VO2 max, and also helping you burn off visceral adipose tissue, that VAT fat. So that's, to me, what you do. It's the walking, add a wrecking vest. It's the resistance training. And ideally, you're hitting each body part at least twice a week. 3 times is probably better. And then HIIT training. And I like to do like a 4x4 style HIIT training once a week, and then a more of the really awful but super short sit training once a week. So like an
Mhm.
all out, 30 seconds or less burst, and then walk around for a while, recover, do it again. That's it.
Yeah, I think that's great. I find that a lot of people, when I do their metabolism testing, I do the resting tests and exercise tests, that so many people don't really do the interval training correctly. And I keep trying to say this on my videos that you have to come down to zone 1 before you go up again. So
Yeah,
they're just training in zone 3. They're not going hard enough and they're not recovering long enough. So they just kind of end
right.
like going
Which
up,
is
coming
not where
down
women
here.
need to be. That
No.
2-3 is actually not helpful for us. Like to me, it's either doing those walks with and adding a rucking vest or doing hard and recover.
Yeah.
But if you're not recovering, then you're never going really hard.
I
So
know.
you're not doing either.
And I have that argument in master swimming because master swimming, they never really rest. It's a 5-10 seconds rest. And I'm always like, no, the research shows
That's
we
not a
need to come,
rest.
you got to stay here long enough till you're
Yeah.
ready to go hard again, or else you're just kind of going nonstop. People just don't see that. But I think that's an important
Yep.
part. So the HIIT training properly, coming up, coming down low and up. The 4x4 is a popular one. I was going through some research the other day on it, like 10 by 1 minute on, and then it's 1 minute off. But I find that some people that are new to this, their heart rate's not going to come down low enough in 1 minute. So they might
For
need
the
rest-based
so
training.
what I do is 4x4 is 4 minutes hard, 3 minutes recover.
Yes, good.
And
But do you
then
do
keep
1 minute?
repeat.
Is that
So the
4
only time I
times?
do 1 minutes ones is I have one 10-minute one where I do 1 minute hard, 1 minute easy, 1 minute hard, 1 minute easy. I'll mess with that one. But I tend to either do like an up to 30 seconds and then generally it's a 90 to 2-minute recovery. And the fitter you are, the faster you recover. But the thing with the interval is it should never get easier because you should just keep pushing that interval harder and harder and harder. Like I've had people say, oh, I got better, so I doubled the interval. I go, no, you don't double the interval, you double the intensity.
Yes.
Like it's still the same amount of time. It's just like resistance training. Just because you got stronger at, like, let's say a squat, you wouldn't do, 100 squats. You'd up the
Yeah,
weight.
put more weight. Yeah, I know. It's interesting. Well, I've done heart rate training for 20 years. So it's interesting to me to, I worked Sally Edwards years ago, heart zone training and dance skin triathlon in 1995. I think we started doing that. And so it's funny to see everyone's starting to pay attention to training and intensity intervals and proper recovery.
And
But
see, here's the thing I think with intervals too is if you're pushing these intervals correctly, you can't watch your heart rate. It won't be there by the like
no,
it's going
doesn't
to
work.
be there after you quit. So it really has to be you going, okay, I'm dying.
Yeah, the sprint training, you just go
Yeah.
hard. Now, what do you like to do your intervals? If people aren't runners, what do you do? Airdyne bike, or do you have any favorite equipment?
I'm playing around with a couple things. So I have at home a Peloton, a sprint treadmill. This is my current favorite thing on the planet.
Woodway
Um,
curves.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I got it for my 60th birthday. I went to a class and I was like, I have to have this, which then resulted in we had to build a gym because there was no room for it. So our old gym now is our recovery room with 2 saunas and red lights and cold plunge and a hyperbaric. And now we have this gym that's got battle ropes and it's got a Life Fitness G7 and it's got a squat rack and it's got an exerciser and it's got TRX. But I have a Stairmaster, a TRX, a step up and down bench, or other step bench, and the bike and the treadmill. And so I mix things up. I also really love high intensity functional training. So I will write, I have a big whiteboard and I just go in and go, okay, what shall I do today? So I could do 4x4 where I do my first minute of up downs, my second minute of jump squats, my third minute of skaters, and my fourth minute of what would be another thing that I hate.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe even just exerciser and, or a kettlebell swing or something. So I'll do 4 minutes of functional things and then I'll recover. And I'll do 4 minutes. So sometimes it's 4 minutes of just straight Stairmaster or treadmill, but usually it's more 4 minutes of functional stuff that is high intensity.
So that reminds me of, I hear Stacy Sims talks about this a lot too, that a lot of the gyms at 45 and Orange Theory, they do that kind of stuff, but they're not doing the recovery in between.
They missed that.
They missed the recovery part, but you're doing kind of what I did at my fitness studio. I do stations like that, write it on the whiteboard, but I'd make sure, and we used my zone and I had it arranged so it'd be easy, hard, and then
Yes.
easy, or you're doing it 4 exercises for your 4 minutes and 4 minutes of something easy. And that's what people have to remember. Oh, I'm going to class, I'm doing that. But no, you're doing that
No,
like
you
middle
have
of
to have the right.
intensity.
And I will sometimes I mix these things up. I like, it's like kind of the old fartlek training of like
Mm,
vary those intervals. So sometimes I'll do a minute hard, a minute easy. Sometimes
mhm.
I'll do 30 seconds really hard and then 2 minutes recovery. I'm just playing around with those so that my body doesn't know what the heck is going on
Yeah.
either. Right. Yeah. We go to a place in Tampa that's a HIIT gym. And some of these guys, I'm like, guys, this is not just let's sweep the floor with you for 40 minutes. It's like, let's do it. So they'll do a 4 minute really hard. And then
Mm,
they have a little 3 minute where they go through talking what they're going to do next. And they kill you
mm,
again for 4. And I'm like,
yeah.
okay, that's perfect.
Yeah, that works. Because sometimes I think you need that external motivation to do that stuff, or have other workout friends at your own home gym to really push you. So you're going to go hard enough, because not everyone's self-motivated to push
Yeah.
themselves up to their max level. Okay, so I
Yeah.
know we're going to run out of time, but I want to make sure we talk a little bit, this whole conversation itself, but you've mentioned on your platform about fasting. You mentioned a little earlier that we tried it. Now, fasting, I talked about, working on matching your fueling and your training. What are your stances on fasted exercise and women fasting overall, that we got into the OMAD and the intermittent fasting?
Yeah.
Now it's kind of, oh no, we should just 12 hours. And so where are you now on that?
Isn't it funny that we would have to call 12 hours intermittent
I
fasting?
know
Like that is
that's
just
normal.
ridiculous. Like growing up, you stopped eating 2 to 3 hours before bed.
Mhm.
And then you woke up and you ate like breakfast an hour or two after you woke up. And then you had breakfast, you had lunch, and you had dinner. Maybe you had an afternoon snack. It's what I think we should be doing. I just
I
like
know.
not. So what I think is silly is this idea that intermittent fasting is eating within a, you know, 12 to 14-hour window. That's normal food intake. I
Yeah.
love Dr. Sachin Panda's work of all this, the circadian rhythm. It makes the most sense to me to
Mhm.
eat when your body is using the fuel.
Yeah.
So being in Europe this summer was a trip because we at home, we wake up usually without an alarm somewhere around 6:30, and then we'll have breakfast somewhere around 8:30, then we'll go to the gym around 9:30, and we eat dinner around 6. We just do, it's like just natural. We try to do
Mm.
a walk or a sauna after dinner. So we just have it set up really well. We
Yeah.
get to Europe and our friends are
So,
like, listen, we're going to go out to dinner with friends. I'm just warning you, they're going to go to dinner at 10 p.m.
yeah.
And I'd already heard this. And I'm like,
Hmm.
so we're in Spain and I was trying to make a dinner reservation for 7. You can't do it. There are
We
no
always try that.
dinners.
Doesn't work.
I'm like, they're not open. I go, this is bizarre. We went to one place for dinner at 10:30 at night. 10:30 at night.
Brutal.
I don't understand what you guys are doing. We met some other friends there who are in the health space, and they literally go, we just go to lunch. We meet everyone for lunch because lunch there is somewhere around 3 or 4 o'clock at night. In the afternoon, they go, we just eat lunch. We don't eat dinner. I go, that's
Mm-hmm.
how I'd have to solve for this because it's just bizarre
Yeah,
and weird.
it is. It's funny.
So, other than that, when you look at intermittent fasting, I think that we got to look at why are people using it. I think the majority of people are using intermittent fasting to lose weight. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, that's how it started.
So,
So many
I
people,
mean,
not sell
there's
autophagy, but
some,
I want to lose weight.
yeah, well, if you want autophagy, the most predictable way to create autophagy is exercise. We have
Exercise.
zero clue how long you have to fast to trigger autophagy, and it would depend on a person, right? So, I mean,
Hmm.
I don't like, where's the research showing when autophagy actually starts? Who
Hmm.
knows? Because
Exactly.
there's no clear answer there, and it's not an on-off switch anyway, and it happens with caloric restriction too. But as far as I can tell, the single most predictable way to create autophagy is just exercise. So let's just exercise. Then we just, game over. Now, with intermittent fasting, so I tried it. I was like, all right, let's try going to the gym and then eating. Did it for a month. My workout sucked. They sucked. And occasionally we'll be on a trip where the only time we can work out is we have to get up and go to the gym, and I just can't eat and go do that. So if I have that situation, I put my essential amino acid powder, creatine, and electrolytes in a 64 ouncer, and I take that with me.
Mhm.
But I just don't work out like I can when I have fuel on board. And I know that like, I think most women are in the same boat. Men are different. So
Mhm.
I'm not even looking at men, but I think for women, if you're doing this because you're trying to lose weight, well, we know that if you want to lose weight, one of the key things is going to be really getting that muscle mass dialed in so you're more insulin sensitive, have a better metabolism, which means you better be able to work out hard. If you can't work out hard because you didn't eat, then we have a problem. And if you
Yeah.
are foolishly thinking that you're going to do a fasted workout to burn more fat during the workout, show me a study where that actually made a difference, because I have not been able to find it. Nothing.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if for some reason, if you did want intermittent fast, to me, what would make sense is to, have breakfast between 8 and 9, and then do your fasting window so you stop eating at like 3 or 4.
Mhm.
That
Yeah,
would make
that's what,
sense.
and for us, I've been trying to do videos like you do you, I do me. But this is my thing.
Hmm.
I wake up early because I like to work out. And so I prioritize my sleep, work backwards. I need 7, 8 to 9 hours of sleep. So I need to go to bed at
Hmm.
8. So I need to stop eating because I'm horrible sleeping. My sleep quality is horrible if I eat close to bed. So
Oh,
I
it's
know
terrible. You're not just you, everybody. You can
everyone.
see it on your aura ring if you eat late at night.
Yeah,
It's like
well, I can
awful.
feel it because
Yeah.
it's sitting there. I
Yeah.
have to look at a device, but I could just tell. And so I know I need to not eat after 5. So it's just when you're working out someone's ideal day, it's like, all right, what time do you do best to work out? All right. What time do you need to go to bed? All right. What do you need to do to wind down? And what's your sleep hygiene routine? And then meal timing. And so you just kind of, for me, it just
Yeah.
works to go backwards. And then luckily I can eat with my husband. We don't have kids, so we can do our main meal at 3 o'clock. And then evening time, I can walk and do my sauna and do my stretching and all that stuff. That it's just not dinner at 6 o'clock at
Yeah.
night. It just seems such a pain.
Empty nesting is so much easier for all schedules.
Yeah.
However, you also do have to think about the person who's like, yes, but my family, we want to eat with our
Hmm.
family, and we
Yes,
eat
it's
at
different.
6:30. Well, I'm going to look at that and go, okay, what's the more important priority here? It's probably spending that time with your family and making sure everyone gets good nutrition. So let's work around. Like, we
Yes.
always have to take the human into account and go, all right, how can we design this so that it will work for you?
Yeah,
I don't know
for
how to
sure.
design it with the 10 o'clock dinner, though. I just really,
No,
that I
that's
can't make
hard.
any sense of.
I
Yeah.
know. Whenever I go to Europe, we're the same. We're booking that reservation for 7 o'clock. Like, wait, no one's open.
Yeah, no, just eat dinner, eat lunch at 5 and call it dinner is the only way to
Yeah.
pull it off.
We did start doing that if you go to Tuscany or somewhere that you're driving and then you go back to your villa and then you realize, oh, it's just easier, get food and eat at home and then do your thing. Okay. So last little bit, couple minutes left on supplements. I know you're big into creatine. I've listened to you on that. Any things that like key things we'll go to your social media or website, learn more, but what are your top supplements for aging?
Yes, because my supplements are different now than they used to be. So foundational ones, I'm actually doing way less, but very specific things. So vitamin D with K, magnesium, fish oil,
Hmm.
foundation.
Yep.
Then
Sure.
creatine, and I am playing around with, I still have creatine monohydrate, but I am looking at another form of creatine as well. And I'm going to come out with very specific recommendations. Right now, while we're recording this, I'd say titrate up your creatine, because people get completely whacked about creatine. Start with 1 gram, then go to 2 grams,
Mm.
and then probably do a 3 gram foundational and another 2 gram hit when you go to the gym. Creatine is how I just time zone adjust all over
Yeah,
Europe. And yeah, like
heard that.
I was swinging 9-hour time zone shifts, and I'm like, oh, and I felt great. So
Yeah.
you get poor sleep, creatine is the single biggest thing that will make a difference for you. If I was going to go back in time, the one thing I would change is I would start a creatine. I was lucky I was weight training when I was a teen, but I would start a creatine way back then.
Mm.
The other things that I love might appear by Timeline. So there's 2 companies I'm now a spokesperson for because I used their products. And it was funny, someone like was mean on social media because, as they always are, oh my God, you're just doing, I go, I've been using this stuff, one of them for 2 years, one for a year and a half, that they
Yeah.
kept going, do you want to do something? I'm like, no, you know, and finally I was
Yes.
like, well,
There's always a
it'd be
reason.
really nice if you sent me this stuff. Um, But you talk about autophagy, and one of the things that happens as we age is we get our mitochondrial mitophagy slows down, which means you're getting your mitochondria gunked up, you're more tired, you can't recover as well. So that's where I've been using MitoPure from Timeline, the skin stuff and the internal. And I know it's time to go home because I'm almost out of my skin stuff. I'm like, gotta go, gotta go home.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
and then I've been doing in fact, I'm interviewing their medical director tomorrow. I've been using the Senolytic from
Qualia.
Qualia for
Mm-hmm.
for like a year and a half too. And
Mm-hmm.
I think this is like super cool because you look at the research that they've been doing showing that helps with arthritis. So this gets rid of those zombie cells that
Mm-hmm.
can hang out, these old cells that should be going away, that are hanging out, that actually can make good cells go bad. But they've got great research now on it for arthritis. So that's super
Yeah.
exciting because I trashed my joints when I was young. trashed
Yeah.
trashed them like four things. I mean, just bad stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
just, anytime a doctor would say you can do everything but X, I'd go, great, go do X.
Do it.
Yeah,
I think
so
people
it's
relate
like,
to that.
yeah, it's like I'm paying for
Mm.
all of it now. My husband's sadly the same way, so we're both like, so we're using a lot of those things. So those would be like some of my most favorite things. I also am a big fan of essential amino acids. I really think that every woman 40 plus would benefit a big scoop of essential amino acids, especially with their morning meal, especially if they're thinking, I can't get enough protein.
Yeah,
And you'll look
for
at them and
sure.
go, that egg or two eggs is not going to get you there. That
Mm-hmm.
avocado toast that you just had, the fat carb bomb you had, like with one egg on it, that's not going to do it. So
Yeah.
at
That,
least if we could get the essential aminos in there, we know we've got it.
yes, for sure. Been talking about that a lot. Amazing. So I appreciate all this information. Where can people learn more and send them to your website, social media? What do you got?
Yeah, websites. So I'm really pushing our YouTube channel. I've been focusing a lot on there and
Mm,
putting some new workouts on there. So that's my name. And then we have our podcast, Well Beyond 40, and Instagram. And I also, on my website, I created a 7-day Eat Protein First challenge just to show
hmm.
people how easy it is to do
Yeah.
this. So that is jjvirgin.com/protein first. Because again, it's like if you can't do it, doesn't matter how great the intervention or strategy is, right?
I know. Well, that's I think is just sharing simple tips that people don't need to feel overwhelmed and then where to start and pick one thing to work on and prioritize and work that into your new
Exactly.
life and make that a habit.
One thing at a
Stack
time.
'em.
We're getting ready to launch a new program we've been working on now for a year, that will go with my next book, and it is just very basic. This thing first.
Mm,
Got that? Then we'll go to and everything
yeah.
is monitored and measured because
Yeah.
that's the only way you can really know if you're accomplishing something. Like if I had to go back in time with all the clients I've worked with, I would never ever work with a client unless they were going to be tracking. Wouldn't
Hmm.
do it.
Yeah. Do you like CGMs or how do you like people to track?
So tracking with I use the Chronometer food app.
Yeah. Me too.
Tracking with a bioimpedance scale, tracking, you don't have to do these things forever. You don't become like a weird obsessed human. It's just to get that feedback. Like I still remember wearing a CGM and waking up in the morning and it said, looks like you ate late last night. And I'm like, as a matter of fact, I did. It was like, wow.
Yeah.
But to use these things to give you that biofeedback so you then can connect the dots between what you're eating, how you're behaving,
Mm.
and what it's actually doing to you, because we're all different.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think that's huge. Just I love to get people to at least start with that. And so you don't know what you
Mhm.
don't know.
Right.
You you learn about yourself and you can't manage what you don't measure. So it's great to start that way for sure.
Yeah. And there's so many
Well,
great tools now. It's
I
easy.
know. I was just using my
Mhm.
Lumen. Lumen is my new toy I've been experimenting with. So test it
I'm
out.
just not sure about that lumen, I must say.
I keep redoing it so to see, okay, and then I do my Pinoy metabolic test, and then I'll go, okay, these should be the same. Let's do it. So
Yeah,
I've
I'm
been
just
experimenting.
the only time I really could use that lumen and was interested in it was when I was to see how much I could blow carbs after a workout. That's when I was
Hmm.
really looking at it. I was
Yes.
like, I just wanted to see if I could really like I also was like, how high can I jack my blood sugar up at a workout?
Oh, yeah. Good. One
Yeah.
equals one
So that's how I
experiment.
put them together.
That's good. Well, thanks so much for everything you do. You've been an inspiration since I started podcasting and learning, going into this industry. Gosh, you're on Sean's. When did your Virgin Diet book come
Oh
out?
my God. Well, Virgin Diet was like 12 years ago, but I was on Sean's.
Yeah.
That was probably 15, 18 years ago.
That's when I first
Long
started
time
listening to
ago.
podcasts and getting into
Mhm.
not just personal training, but I wanted to get that holistic approach to everything because you can't help people training them twice a week. And it led me down the path being a nutritional therapy practitioner and FDN practitioner and doing it all because you can't.
Nice.
It's not just exercise, but now as we get older,
Nope.
it's exercise first, but you got to still do the other stuff.
Yep. It's great to be vindicated, but yeah, it's why as an exercise physiologist, I started jumped grad schools into nutrition, same reason.
Yeah, no,
Had to
you're
know it
my
all.
inspiration for sure. So I appreciate that. And I hope to see you at Mindshare soon.
It's easy. Just come to Mindshare. I'll see you there.
All right. Thanks so much.